Police have issued an all-points bulletin across the state of Maine and around New England, hoping to track down this gunman who certainly scared a lot of young children today. We're live in Westbrook. Lucas Colavecchio, News 13. We begin tonight with a developing story out of Waldo County. Police say a 25-year-old man was shot during an armed robbery in Stockton Springs. Police are very worried that this stuff is going to start showing up on playgrounds like this one. It is extremely dangerous, and it has a very deceptive name, Strawberry Quick. Over here, you can see piles of debris like this one. This is all pipe that used to be part of that natural gas pipeline that exploded the other day. If conditions continue to go the way they're going, and with the tide coming in, we could be looking at mandatory evacuations here in the next few hours. We've got all this sea foam that's been whipped up by the wind, completely covering up these buildings. I just have to show this to you because I think it's really interesting. Look at that. Absolutely disgusting. And two of the possible candidates for Barack Obama and John McCain's running mates say they're not interested. But in VP politics, you have to say no publicly before saying yes privately. A South Portland man is facing several charges tonight, including terrorizing after a standoff with police. The vigil is going on right now here behind me in Lewiston's Raymond Park. We've got some people speaking right now. They just lit the candles a few moments ago. But before we get into that, I want to draw your attention to what is hanging here in the tree. These are purple lights. They have been strung on the trees all around this park here in Lewiston. This is a highly visible location here at the intersection of Main and Lincoln Streets. And these trees are going to be lit all month long in an attempt to shed some light on the problem of domestic violence. Crews right now are trying to clean up the road here. We had about 20 vehicles involved in what appear to be a chain reaction type collision. Several minivans involved, packed with families, kids. We've got tractor trailers here that they have been working feverishly for the last 30 minutes or so, trying to get a lot of these vehicles off the road here. Again, you can see this scene just stretches down probably for about a half a mile on the northbound side of I-95. We're just north of exit 42 here in Scarborough. A lot of people involved in this situation. Several people taken to the hospital. Not too clear yet on the extent of the injuries. However, we have been told that at least one child was taken to the hospital to be treated for broken ribs.
We're having car break-ins, burglaries, all that stuff, and it's all related to drugs. A person who's addicted to crack cocaine can go through a lot of money really quickly. Drug addicts can be very desperate.
Whether it's crack, prescription drugs, or heroin, addicts will do anything to get their fix, some now even willing to abuse your tax dollars to satisfy their habit.
They're desperate people, and they have to feed that addiction somehow.
Sergeant Sean Lally is an undercover agent assigned to the Greater Portland Drug Task Force. We can't show you his face, but he wants to shed light on the abuse and misuse of food stamp benefits funded entirely by your federal tax dollars.
Most of the people, I'm sure, are going with the program and doing what they're supposed to do, but there are those people involved in the system that are definitely committing fraud.
This, he says, is done by exchanging the food stamp benefit for half its value in drugs. Addicts give their drug dealers access to their Pine Tree card. This is how the state administers food stamp benefits, and it works just like a debit card with a secure PIN number. In fact, when the federally mandated card was unveiled at the State House in 2003, it was touted as a way to reduce fraud.
It is a taxpayer saver, not only in Maine, but for every person in this entire country.
But Sergeant Lally says this card can be easily manipulated. All addicts need to do is give up the card and their PIN number to a drug dealer.
When the person who's on the assistance loans out the card and gives the PIN number, that system fails.
According to the state's Department of Health and Human Services, which is responsible for distributing the card and benefits, the system can fail at times, but they won't talk specifics.
I don't want to, necessarily get into that. I mean, I think that, when situations come up, we deal with it.
Deputy Director Tom Kai says ever since the state began using the Pine Tree card, food stamp abuse has dropped from between 2 to 5% to less than 1%.
If people are misusing the benefit or misrepresenting themselves, then we want to act on that.
Sergeant Lally says a simple fix would be to have grocery stores card users of the Pine Tree card.
I would just say, every time someone goes to buy a bottle of alcohol or a pack of cigarettes, they have to show an ID. What's the difference here? If you just show an ID, the system will work.
DHHS says that kind of solution would have to come from the feds, and says while there may be people who abuse the system, the benefits of food stamps far outweigh the problems.
It certainly makes a big difference in people's lives in terms of, being able to eat well or eat better than they would if they didn't have it.
It's a life-sustaining benefit that for some satisfies the wrong cravings. Lucas Colavecchio, News 13. Let there be no doubt, the town of Harrison is divided over today's verdict. The calm waters of Long Lake here in Harrison show no sign of the turmoil that's rippled through this lakeside community ever since the night of August 11, 2007, when Robert LaPointe accidentally struck another boat, killing 2 people.
That was quite a tragedy to have something like that, happen.
It's a tragedy that's consumed this close-knit community. Everyone anxiously waiting for a verdict in LaPointe's manslaughter trial.
People talking, saying, making predictions as to how things are going to turn out and all, but
it's been really something everyone's been watching closely.
There are mixed feelings about the jury's decision Wednesday to convict LaPointe of drunk driving. They were hung on other charges of manslaughter and reckless conduct.
I can't believe that he's getting away with it, just drunk driving. I think it's ridiculous.
I'm not surprised. I think it's a direction they needed to go in. But I think it's complicated. I think it's a tough call to make.
I've known him for about 5-6 years, and he's been a really close friend of mine. Real nice guy.
LaPointe's friend, Kevin LaPlante, was in court when that verdict was read.
I thought it was good. I thought, I thought he should have got clear. But, we'll just take this and deal with it as we can.
No question, Harrison is a town divided. Resentments linger like ripples on the waters of Long Lake. But most here seem ready to put this tragedy to rest.
I think it's time. I think it's time to, he's been to trial and the jury has spoken, and even though it's hung, they've spoken, and maybe it's time to move on.
And now relatives of the 2 people who were killed in this accident say they are now going to focus their energies on lobbying lawmakers in Augusta to put restrictions on high-powered speedboats on lakes like this one. And when I ask people in Harrison what they think about that, with a few exceptions, most who I spoke to say it needs to be done so that an accident like the one that happened here on Long Lake on a night just like this doesn't happen again.
One of those really, really warm nights in January last year.
One of those nights that brings out the crowds.
We all decided to go dancing at a club.
Little did Emily Parkhurst realize that was an invitation for trouble.
So everybody was out in the old port and the club got packed. It was a zoo.
In the midst of the chaos, a man approaches Emily and offers a drink.
I accepted it to be polite. It's like, I'll have a couple of sips and I'm going to put this down, and I don't really have any interest.
But at that point, it's too late.
I would say 10 minutes later, I don't have any memory. I blacked out.
Emily has no recollection of what happens during the next 5 hours. Then
I woke up in his apartment, and he was raping me.
Battered and covered in blood, Emily was frozen with fear.
And when he noticed that I was awake, he pushed me onto my back and laid himself on top of me and finished.
This brutal assault, in conjunction with 36 other rapes this past year, has elevated Portland to one of the most rape-prone cities in America. A distinction noted in black and white there on the Portland Police Department's website.
Sometimes I wonder, is it that more is happening and that's the reason for it? But I also think that, we were talking about breaking the silence. I think there has been some of that silence that has been broken, that people talk about it more.
The truth of the matter is that this violent crime may be happening even more than statistics suggest.
It's a really hard crime to convict, because it's a very intimate crime.
Cindy Amato of Sexual Assault Response Services in Portland says for every rape reported to police, 2 go unreported. If that holds true, that means a woman is raped every 3 days in Portland. Assaults against teens and homeless women are now happening more often. And Amato says getting the numbers down is a matter of resources.
We need more emergency room nurses who are trained in collecting forensic evidence. We need more police departments that have specialized officers who know how to respond to sexual assault. You know, we need district attorneys' offices that have prosecutors who really do know how to prosecute sex crimes.
But perhaps the most powerful weapon are the victims, like Emily Parkhurst, giving voice to this silent crime.
Somebody has to talk about it, otherwise it keeps going on.